William Hayes straightened his navy blue uniform one last time before the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber swung open. The weight of his responsibility pressed down on his shoulders. As Earth's ambassador, he carried the hopes of 8 billion humans with him into this room. The chamber was huge, larger than any stadium on Earth. Its high ceiling curved into a dome, painted with the star maps of all 37 member species. Rings of seats rose up like steps, filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some had too many limbs. Others had strange-colored skin. A few didn't even look solid. William felt their eyes on him as he walked to the small platform in the center. Most of them looked at him the way adults look at children, with fake smiles that hid their true feelings. Earth was new to space travel. Humans had only figured out how to move faster than light 20 years ago. To these aliens that made them babies, Ambassador Hayes of Earth announced a tall, thin alien with purple skin and 4 arms. This was High Chancellor Zex Toril of the Illyrian Empire, the leader of the Council. His voice boomed through the chamber. The Galactic Defense Committee has reached a decision about your solar system. William nodded politely, though his stomach tightened. Intelligence reports had warned him what was coming. The ongoing war with the Dreven Collective requires strategic positioning, Zex Toril continued. The Council will build a military base in your solar system, near the planet you call Jupiter. This will begin immediately. Murmurs filled the room. William noticed how none of the aliens looked surprised. This had been decided long before he entered the room. The human delegation has 3 standard cycles to prepare your system for our construction fleet, said Zex Toril. His eyes narrowed as he added, "This is not a negotiation." William took a deep breath and stepped forward to the speaking platform. The small circle lit up under his feet, marking him as the official speaker. "With respect, High Chancellor," William said, keeping his voice steady and strong. "Humanity cannot and will not permit foreign military installations in our home system." The chamber went silent. William could hear a strange clicking sound as several insect-like aliens rubbed their limbs together in what might have been shock. "Earth stands neutral in your conflict," William continued. "We have no wish to become involved in wars that began before we even left our planet." Zex Toril's face darkened to a deeper purple. "Perhaps I was unclear, Ambassador Hayes," he said, his voice dropping dangerously low. "This is not a request. It is a notification. The decision has been made." William nodded slowly, gathering his thoughts. The human delegation behind him remained silent, as practiced. This moment would decide Earth's future in the galaxy. "Then permit me to offer a notification in return," William said. His voice was calm but carried throughout the chamber thanks to the speaking platform's technology. "Should any unauthorized military vessels enter Sol space, they will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." He paused to let his words sink in. Then he added, "Humanity gives you this one warning." Laughter broke out across the chamber. A large frog-like alien in the front row actually slapped its knee in amusement. Others made various sounds that their translator devices turned into human-like chuckles and giggles. "Ambassador," said a gray-skinned delegate with 6 eyes, "your species has barely mastered basic space travel. Your largest ships would not even register as shuttles to our fleets. The human military consists of exactly 43 combat-capable vessels," added another alien, this one floating above its seat like a jellyfish. "Our records are quite thorough." Zex Toril raised a hand for silence. "Your warning is noted, Ambassador Hayes. But understand that the Council's decision stands. Preparations will begin as scheduled." William met the High Chancellor's gaze without blinking. Then he gave a short bow, just enough to be polite, but not enough to show submission. "We have made our position clear," he said. "Earth will defend its sovereignty." With that, William turned and walked toward the exit. His team of 5 human delegates fell in behind him. None of them spoke until the massive doors closed behind them. Lisa Jordan, his chief advisor, finally broke the silence. "Well, that went exactly as expected." William nodded as they walked through the empty hallway. They think we're primitive and helpless. Just as we planned, Lisa said with a small smile. William looked out a window at the stars beyond. Send the signal. It's time to wake the Ghost Fleet. Admiral Susan Miller stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Through the large windows of Earth's Orbital Defense Command, she could see the blue curve of her home planet. The room was quiet except for the soft beeps of computers and the low voices of her officers. They're coming, said General Eric Grant as he joined her by the window. His face looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. Susan nodded, just as we expected. The main screen at the front of the room showed a group of dots moving toward Earth's solar system. These dots were the Galactic Council's construction fleet, 15 large ships and 30 smaller ones coming to build their military base. How long until they arrive? Susan asked. Officer Frank Turner looked up from his computer. At their current speed, they will enter our system in 53 minutes, Admiral. Susan walked to the central command table. It showed a 3D map of Earth's solar system with little blue dots representing human ships in orbit around Earth, Mars, and the Moon. There weren't many dots. The Council thought humans only had 43 combat ships. Has the Ghost Fleet reported in? She asked quietly. Yes, Admiral, Eric replied, his voice equally low. All ships are in position and cloaked. The Council's sensors won't detect them until it's too late. For 50 years, Earth had shown only a small part of its true power to the galaxy. While aliens watched Earth's primitive ships, the real fleet, over 2,000 advanced warships, stayed hidden in the shadows of planets, moons, and asteroids. This was the Ghost Fleet, Earth's true strength. Admiral, called Frank Turner, we're getting a transmission from the Council fleet. Susan straightened her uniform. Put it on screen. The main screen changed to show an alien face. Commander Dravzen looked like a giant insect with green skin and large eyes. His mandibles, the mouth parts that looked like pincers, clicked together as he spoke. Human authorities, said Dravzen, his voice translated into English. Our construction fleet will enter your system in 1 hour. Clear all orbital platforms from designated Sector 4. Any interference will be considered an act of rebellion against Council authority. Susan stepped forward where the alien could see her. Commander Dravzen, this is Admiral Miller of Earth Defense. Your fleet is not authorized to enter Sol space. We issued one warning through diplomatic channels. This is your final opportunity to alter course. The alien's mandibles clicked faster, which humans had learned was a sign of amusement. Admiral, your species has barely mastered rudimentary space travel. The construction will proceed. Resistance would be unfortunate for your developing civilization. The screen went black as Dravzen ended the transmission. They think we're bluffing, Eric said, shaking his head. Of course they do, Susan replied. Why would they believe a primitive species would stand up to them? She turned to look at her command team. 20 men and women watched her, waiting for orders. They all knew what was coming. They had trained for this day for years. Communications, Susan said. Send the activation codes to Ghost Fleet. Authorization Miller 7 Delta 3. Officer Turner nodded and pressed a series of buttons on his console. Code sent. Admiral, Ghost Fleet acknowledges. On the 3D map, nothing changed. The Ghost Fleet remained invisible to normal sensors. But Susan knew that across the solar system, fusion engines were warming up and weapons systems were coming online. 2,000 ships were preparing for battle while staying completely hidden. Major Kate Wilson approached with a tablet. Admiral, Ambassador Hayes is on a secure line from Proxima Station. He reports that the Council's diplomatic team is still laughing about our warning. Susan took the tablet and saw William's face. Ambassador, are you and your team clear of the station yet? William nodded on the screen. We're boarding our shuttle now. We should be at the jump point before the Council fleet reaches Sol. Good, Susan said. We don't want any humans caught in the crossfire if this goes badly. "It won't go badly," William said with confidence. "The Ghost Fleet has the element of surprise. The Council has no idea what they're flying into." Susan handed the tablet back to Kate. "Let's hope they learn quickly. I'd prefer not to destroy their entire fleet to make our point." The minutes ticked by. On the main screen, the dots representing the Council fleet grew closer to the edge of Sol space. "Ghost Fleet in final positions," reported Eric. "All ships report weapons hot and ready." Susan looked once more at the blue curve of Earth through the window. "Now we see if the Council can take a hint." Commander Dravzen stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the Relentless Glory. As the leader of the Council's construction fleet, he had overseen dozens of military base installations across the galaxy. This mission to the human system was supposed to be routine. Primitive species always back down when faced with superior force. "We will reach Sol system boundary in 5 minutes, Commander," reported his navigation officer, a slender blue-skinned alien named Krell. Dravzen's mandibles clicked softly in satisfaction. "Excellent. Prepare to broadcast our entry protocols on all frequencies. The humans have gone silent since your last communication," said his executive officer, Sub-Commander Vex. "No further messages." "Of course they have," Dravzen said with a dismissive wave of his upper arm. "They made their empty threat, and now they hide. It is the pattern of all young species." He turned to face the large viewing screen that showed the star field ahead. "The Council has been doing this for 10,000 years. Primitive species always yield when confronted with superior force." The bridge crew nodded in agreement. Most had served on similar missions before. Some had even visited Earth during early diplomatic contacts and seen the humans' simple technology with their own eyes. "Commander," called out the sensor operator suddenly, his voice uncertain. "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system." Dravzen frowned and moved to the sensor station. "Explain." The operator, a 4-armed alien named Jix, pointed at his screen. "These readings suggest cloaked vessels, but that's impossible. Human technology isn't advanced enough for effective cloaking." Sub-Commander Vex joined them and studied the readings. "These can't be human ships. Perhaps a sensor malfunction." "Run a diagnostic," ordered Dravzen. "We can't afford equipment failures during a construction operation." Jix tapped at his controls. "Sensors are functioning correctly, Commander. These readings are real." Dravzen felt a flicker of unease. "Where are these energy signatures coming from?" "There?" Jix paused, his eyes widening. "They're everywhere. All across the system." Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Red lights flashed as emergency signals activated on every console. "Multiple vessels decloaking," shouted Jix. "Thousands of them. Impossible." Dravzen rushed back to his command chair. "Show me." The main view screen changed to display an impossible sight. All across the Sol system, sleek black ships were appearing as if from nowhere. Their design was clearly human, yet far more advanced than anything humanity had previously revealed. They moved with precision, forming perfect blockade formations around the Council fleet's approach vector. "Count," demanded Dravzen, his voice tight. "Over 2,000 vessels detected so far," reported Jix, his hands trembling slightly. "Many of them larger than our capital ships." A communication alert sounded. "Incoming transmission from the human fleet," reported the communications officer. Dravzen nodded stiffly. On screen, a human female appeared on the view screen. She wore a dark uniform with silver markings that suggested high rank. "Council Fleet, this is Vice Admiral Olivia Bennett of Earth's Ghost Fleet. You have entered restricted space against explicit warning. Power down weapons and prepare to be escorted out of the system." Dravzen stared in disbelief. This is some trick. The humans couldn't have hidden such technological advancement. "Our intelligence reports were based on what we wanted you to see," interrupted Admiral Bennett. "Your fleet has 30 seconds to begin powering down weapon systems, or we will consider your actions hostile." Sub-Commander Vex leaned close to Dravzen. "Commander, our scans indicate their weapon systems are. They're beyond anything in our databases, and they have us surrounded." "This is some trick," Dravzen insisted, though doubt was growing in his mind. "Maintain course. They wouldn't dare fire on a council fleet." On his command chair display, Dravzen could see the formations of human ships moving into precise positions. Their black hulls absorbed light rather than reflecting it, making them look like moving holes in space. No primitive species could build such vessels, let alone thousands of them. 10 seconds remaining, Commander," came Admiral Bennett's voice again. "I suggest you reconsider your position." Dravzen's mandibles clicked rapidly as he faced a decision no council commander had ever expected to make. Retreat before an allegedly primitive species, or risk his entire fleet against an unknown force. "They gave us one warning," Sub-Commander Vex whispered. "Perhaps we should have listened." Vice Admiral Olivia Bennett sat calmly in the command chair of the EDS Vigilant. The massive black dreadnought was the flagship of Earth's Ghost Fleet, a vessel nearly 1 mile long that had never been seen by alien eyes until today. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, their movements smooth from years of training. Through the main viewport, Olivia could see the Council fleet, tiny against the backdrop of stars, but growing closer. Their ships were impressive by galactic standards, but the Vigilant alone could match their combined firepower. And the Vigilant was just one of nearly 2,000 vessels now surrounding the intruders. "Admiral, the Council fleet is not changing course," reported Tactical Officer Richard Perez. "They've ignored your warning." "As expected," Olivia replied with a small nod. She had studied alien psychology for years. The Council species were too proud to back down quickly. They needed proof of human power. Earth had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. While showing the galaxy a handful of simple ships, they had secretly built the most advanced fleet in known space. It was a strategy from Earth's own history: appear weak when you are strong. "Target the lead escort vessel," Olivia ordered. "Minimum yield on the graviton lance." The weapons officer's fingers moved over his console. "Target locked. Minimum yield set." Olivia leaned forward slightly. "Fire." There was no sound, no flash of light from the Vigilant. The graviton lance was invisible to the naked eye. But on the tactical display, Olivia watched as the weapon's effect reached the target, a Council destroyer on the edge of their formation. The alien ship seemed to crumple like paper, its hull compressed inward as if crushed by an invisible hand. The graviton lance didn't burn or explode. It manipulated gravity itself, creating a crushing force that no known shields could stop. In less than 5 seconds, the once proud Council warship was reduced to a twisted ball of metal. "Target destroyed," reported Richard. "No survivors detected." Olivia felt no joy at the loss of alien lives, but this demonstration was necessary. Throughout human history, weaker nations had learned to hide their true capabilities until necessary. Earth had applied the same principle on a galactic scale. "Open channel to all Council vessels," she ordered. The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Olivia spoke clearly, knowing her words would be translated for the Council fleet. "This was a demonstration using our lowest yield settings. You have 5 minutes to power down and prepare for escort out of the system, or we will disable your entire fleet. This is humanity's final communication on the matter." On the Relentless Glory, Commander Dravzen watched in horror as one of his most advanced destroyers was crushed by technology his scientists had declared theoretically impossible. The ship's distress call had lasted only seconds before silence. "How?" he whispered, his mandibles trembling. They were supposed to be primitives. His executive officer approached, his blue skin now pale with fear. "Commander, the rest of the human fleet is moving to surround us. Our sensors indicate weapons lock from multiple vectors." On his display, Dravzen could see the black human ships shifting positions with impossible speed and precision. Each vessel moved as if it knew exactly where to be, forming a perfect cage around his fleet. "Our weapons," he asked, "would be useless against their shields," his tactical officer replied. "And their graviton technology. Commander, there's nothing like it in our records. If they use it at full power." Dravzin didn't need him to finish. He had just watched a Council destroyer, built with technology developed over thousands of years, destroyed in seconds. The humans knew, he realized aloud. They knew we wouldn't listen to their warning. This was planned. His executive officer checked the time. 3 minutes remaining before their deadline expires. Dravzin made the only possible choice. Send the order to all ships. Power down all offensive systems. Prepare for escort. As the commands went out, he stared at the view screen showing the human flagship. Its black hull seemed to drink in the starlight, revealing nothing of the incredible power it held within. "They gave us one warning," he said quietly, "and we were too proud to listen." 3 days after the Ghost Fleet incident, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The Grand Chamber that usually hosted calm discussions now buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from all 37 member species argued loudly with each other as they waited for the meeting to begin. High Chancellor Zex Toril entered the chamber, his purple face darker than usual. The 4-armed alien looked tired. He had spent the last 3 days watching videos of the human Ghost Fleet and reading reports about their technology. None of it made sense. How could such a young species hide so much power? "This emergency session will come to order," Zex Toril announced, his voice cutting through the noise. The chamber gradually quieted. Every seat was filled. Even species that rarely attended council meetings had sent representatives. The news of a council fleet being forced to retreat had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. "Ambassador William Hayes of Earth has requested to address the council," Zex Toril said. His voice carried no emotion, but his eyes showed his anger. The massive doors at the far end of the chamber opened. William Hayes walked in, wearing the same simple blue uniform he had worn days earlier. He looked calm, showing no fear despite the hostile stares from all sides. William took his place at the center of the chamber. Unlike before, no one laughed or whispered jokes as he stood there. The room was completely silent. "Ambassador Hayes," Zex Toril began, "you stand before the council to explain your species' actions. The deception you practiced violates multiple council statutes on technological disclosure." William's face remained calm. "With respect, Chancellor, humanity never signed the Technology Disclosure Accords. We were never granted full membership status, merely observational participation. Your own rules created this situation." An angry murmur spread through the chamber. The Brilaxian representative, a tall alien with skin like tree bark, stood up. "You deliberately misled the council about your capabilities," he accused. "Your ships, your weapons, you showed us only primitive technology, while building a fleet that could threaten us all." William shook his head slightly. "Not at all. We never claimed to be primitive." The council assumed, and humanity saw no reason to correct that assumption. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of different representatives. "We observed how the council treats lesser species as tools to be used in your conflicts. The Talarians were forced to send soldiers to die in your war with the Krell. The Vosians lost their homeworld when you decided it had resources you needed." Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. What he said was true, though no one usually spoke of such things in the council chamber. "Humanity chose a different path," William continued. "We showed you what we wanted you to see, while preparing to defend ourselves if necessary." Zex Toril's hands clenched the edges of his podium. "What are humanity's demands?" "Territory, resources, technology exchange." "No demands," William replied simply. "Only a clarification. Sol System is sovereign territory. We will defend it. We have no interest in your conflicts, your politics, or your resources. We only wish to be left alone." The room fell silent again. In the thousands of years of council history, no new species had ever taken such a position. Young races always sought council protection and technology. And if we refuse to acknowledge this sovereignty, Zextoril challenged, his voice tight with controlled anger. William's expression didn't change. We gave one warning about entering our space. The council ignored it. There won't be a second warning about anything else. The threat hung in the air. Everyone in the chamber had seen the recordings of what happened to the council destroyer. The graviton lance technology was beyond anything their scientists understood. "You threaten the council?" asked a small green alien from the front row. "No," William answered. "I simply state facts. Earth wants peace. We will trade. We will share cultural knowledge. We will even help with scientific research. But we will not be controlled, and we will not fight in your wars." Zextoril stared at the human ambassador. For the first time in his long life, he faced a species that didn't fear the council's power. It was a disturbing feeling. "This session will recess while the council considers Earth's position," he announced finally. As the representatives filed out, many cast worried glances at William Hayes. The human stood alone in the center of the chamber, but he no longer looked small or weak. He looked like what he was, the ambassador of a power that had just changed the balance of the galaxy. 3 months after the Ghost Fleet incident, Ambassador William Hayes sat alone in a small cafe on Neutral Station, a trading post far from both Earth and the Council's central worlds. The cafe was dark and quiet, perfect for meetings that needed privacy. William sipped his drink, a bitter alien tea that he had grown to like. His eyes watched the door, alert but calm. This meeting was not official. If it went wrong, neither Earth nor the Council would admit it had happened. The door slid open. A tall, slender alien woman entered and looked around. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes were large and silver. Council Intelligence Director Mara Vex was known throughout the galaxy as a dangerous and clever opponent. She was the last person William expected to reach out for a secret meeting. Mara Vex spotted him and walked to his table. She moved gracefully, but William noticed her hand stayed close to what was probably a hidden weapon. "Ambassador Hayes," she said as she sat down across from him. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." William nodded. "Director Maravex, I admit I was curious about your invitation." A server droid brought Maravex a drink. She waited until it rolled away before speaking. "Your species plays a dangerous game, Ambassador," she said. "Many council members want retribution for the humiliation you caused." William sipped his tea. "Yet here you are, meeting unofficially." The alien studied him with those large silver eyes. "The graviton lance technology your ships displayed. It should be impossible for a species at your development stage. Perhaps your development models need revision," William suggested. "What else are you hiding?" she asked directly. William set down his glass. "Director, humanity spent thousands of years fighting itself before achieving unity. During those conflicts, we became very good at keeping secrets and developing weapons." He leaned forward slightly. "When we detected your civilization's transmissions 50 years ago, we immediately began preparing." 50 years. Maravex's eyes widened. "You've known about us for that long. Before we found you. We monitored the Council's treatment of other emerging species," William explained. "We saw how the Tellarians were conscripted as cannon fodder in your war with the Krell, how the Vosgian homeworld was converted into a mining colony." He shrugged. "We decided a different approach was necessary." Maravex took a small sip of her drink, watching him over the rim of her glass. "I have been authorized to offer Earth immediate full council membership, with all associated privileges and obligations," William noted, "including military support for council conflicts and resource contributions." Maravex leaned forward. "Your technology would end the Dreven War within a year. The council would be grateful." William shook his head. "Humanity won't fight your wars, but we might consider a different arrangement." "What arrangement?" The alien's voice was cautious. "Protection," William said simply. "For species that don't want to be part of the Council's wars anymore." Maravex sat back, her silver eyes narrowing. You would challenge the Council's authority over its member worlds. Not challenge, William corrected. Simply offer an alternative. Any species that wishes to remain under Council rule is welcome to do so. But those who want independence would have Earth's protection. The Council would never agree to this, Maravex said, her voice hard. They don't need to agree, William replied calmly. They just need to remember what happened to their fleet. The alien stared at him for a long moment. The Talarians have already contacted Earth, haven't they? And the Vosians. William didn't answer, but his slight smile told her everything. You planned this from the beginning, Maravex realized. The fleet incident, the Council meeting, all of it, to show other species that the Council could be defied. We gave the Council one warning, William said. They ignored it. Now other species are learning from that mistake. Maravex stood slowly. This conversation never happened, Ambassador, but the Council will not forget what you've done. William remained seated, his face calm. We don't want them to forget, Director. We want them to remember and to change. As the alien woman left, William finished his tea. The real game was just beginning. Earth wasn't interested in ruling the galaxy or fighting wars. But after thousands of years watching stronger powers bully the weak on their own planet, humans had decided that the galaxy needed something new, a defender for those who couldn't defend themselves. 1 year after the Ghost Fleet incident, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Nearly a third of the seats stood empty. The representatives of 17 worlds who once filled those seats were now gathered in a different meeting on Earth. High Chancellor Zex Toril called the session to order, his voice lacking its former confidence. The past year had been the most difficult in the Council's long history. The balance of power that had existed for thousands of years had been shattered in a single day when humanity revealed its true strength. We will now hear from William Hayes, official representative of the newly formed Independent Systems Alliance, Zex Toril announced. The chamber doors opened, and William walked in. Unlike his previous visits, he was not alone. Behind him walked representatives from 17 former Council worlds, the Talarians with their tall, thin bodies, the Vosians with their stone-like skin, the Brelix with their 4 eyes, and many others. Each had once been dominated by the Council. Now they walked with heads held high. William took his place at the center of the chamber. The Council members watched in silence, their anger barely contained. Thank you for allowing me to address the Council today, William began. I come not as Earth's ambassador, but as a representative of the Independent Systems Alliance, a coalition of worlds who have chosen a different path from Council membership. A coalition formed through Earth's interference in Council affairs, said Zex Toril, his purple skin darkening with anger. William shook his head. With respect, Chancellor, Earth merely offered protection. Each world made its own choice. He gestured to the representatives behind him. For centuries, these civilizations provided resources and soldiers for Council wars. Their people died fighting battles that brought them no benefit. Now they have chosen freedom. The Alliance seeks peaceful coexistence with the Council, William continued. Our member worlds will maintain trade relationships, but will no longer provide military assets or submit to Council authority. This is insurrection, Zex Toril hissed, his 4 hands gripping his podium tightly. This is self-determination, William corrected, something the Council claims to value but rarely permits. The Talarian representative, a tall being with skin like silver bark, stepped forward. His people had suffered greatly under Council rule, forced to send millions of soldiers to die in wars far from their homeworld. My people bled for centuries in Council wars, the Talarian said, his voice deep and strong. 3 generations of Talarians grew up knowing only battle and death. Now we choose our own path. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many Council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Everyone knew the Talarian story was true. William continued, Humanity extends an open invitation to any civilization seeking independence from Council oversight. Our defensive capabilities are available to all Alliance members. You would break apart the Council? Asked a representative from the front row. No, William replied. We offer an alternative. The Council can continue as it has for those who wish to remain. But for those who desire independence, there is now another option. As the Council chamber descended into angry debate, William stepped back to stand with the Alliance representatives. At the back of their group, Admiral Susan Miller watched quietly. She wore a formal uniform with no weapons, but her presence sent a clear message. Behind the words of peace stood the power of the Ghost Fleet. William caught Susan's eye and gave a small nod. Their plan had worked perfectly. Humanity had revealed just enough of its capabilities to establish protection for those who needed it, without showing their full hand. Earth had no desire to rule or control. Throughout human history, too many empires had tried that path and failed. Instead, they had created something new, a shield for the weak against the strong, protection without control. The message to the galaxy was clear. Humanity had given one warning about violating their sovereignty. The Council had ignored it and learned a harsh lesson. There would be no need for a second warning. The galaxy now understood that the seemingly young species from Sol was not to be underestimated, and they had only revealed a fraction of what they could do. As William prepared to leave with the Alliance representatives, Zex Toril called out one last question. How long? The High Chancellor asked. How long have you been preparing for this moment? William paused and looked back. From the day we first heard your transmissions and saw how you treated those weaker than yourselves, humanity has spent its entire history fighting against tyrants. We simply brought that fight to the stars.